Good afternoon, Steph, and thank you very much for joining me today. Again, you have a super impressive background as an event professional in the event industry, and so I'd love to hear a little bit more about yourself. Can you tell us how did you start working in the event industry, and what does your current role entail right now?
Good afternoon, Karine. Thank you so much for having me. Sure, yeah, I started out in the events industry as a brand ambassador while I was still busy studying my degree. That was in journalism and business management. And I then started doing full-time work in marketing and sales type roles. I then included executive assistants and event planning in those sorts of roles as well. And as time went by, I found myself feeling really passionate about event management, organizing events, managing events from start to finish. So I progressed more and more into those types of roles as much as I could and gained as much experience as I could in those roles. And then I started working for an agency in South Africa that owned and produced an annual music festival. And then also had my own business on the side, organizing brand activations and promotions, as well as a database of brand ambassadors. And basically my day-to-day of my role entails looking after client accounts, and planning the events from start to finish, so from concept to execution. I was also at the event managing all suppliers, production teams, and basically everything start to finish. So budgets, as I said before, concepts, ideas, brainstorming, execution, and everything.
Perfect. So you get the whole package. Very, very impressive. That sounds
Absolutely.
good. And you mentioned you're in South Africa, which is, it sounds like a great place to be right now. So I was curious, when COVID hit in March 2020 in South Africa, what was your initial reaction? How did your clients react initially at the beginning, at the start of COVID?
So my initial reaction was very, very much one of concern. I mean, we knew that the industry was going to be considerably hurt by this, especially with the physical events. And it was inevitable that those events were going to take a bit of a hit. Clients immediately held back on their budgets, especially clients that were sponsoring budgets. So it was a bit difficult to sort of wangle some kind of an agreement with any of my existing clients because there was just too much uncertainty with events taking place, with the virus happening. And also hosting physical events obviously went more to this virtual sort of platform. But coming to virtual, that also had its own set of challenges. So it was a bit difficult for the music industry and festivals, those kinds of events, to continue on a virtual platform. But there were ways and means to do it. So we managed okay. But it was quite a bit of a shock, I think, all around for the whole industry.
Yeah, understandable. And what's interesting, I think you mentioned just before we started the interview, as we were chatting, you mentioned that in South Africa, physical events sort of went ahead still, and so which is super interesting. And so, could you tell us a bit more about what did your clients do differently, perhaps in South Africa, in your region? What did they do differently just to adapt to the new normal?
So business obviously did change quite quickly. All client meetings went onto this virtual platform, which was very much doable. We could have our meetings, we could chat about our budget setting, we could have our face-to-face interviews moved to this online sort of virtual platform. But obviously, like the day-to-day of planning an event, it was still possible to do online. It just changed a bit because we didn't know what was going to come ahead of us. So it was a little bit difficult to plan for the future and not be so certain if we were going to be able to do the physical events, which, as it turned out, we were able to do them up until about the 28th of December, which is really great for South Africa specifically because it's our summer season from basically September to about March, between spring and summer. So we have had our season, we have had our events taking place. Up until the 28th of December, we were in a lesser lockdown. So the events were taking place. We just had limitations on capacity. Obviously, our safety and our health and safety measures went up a bit. So we were making sure that our capacities were much lower, and obviously the sanitization, masks, social distancing was all taking place. A lot of restaurants that had events would have just table seating so that you couldn't quite get up and dance on the dance floor. So there were limitations, but there were ways to continue the events up until the 28th of December.
Interesting. So it sounds like both your clients and yourself, you've managed to adapt to the new the guidelines and somehow made it work, which is super interesting. And so, as an event professional, as an event expert, do you think that physical events will become maybe different in the future? Do you think it will be more hybrid events? What do you see the future of the event industry will be in the next sort of 6, 12 months?
Well, we can all be positive and hope that they're going to come back in full force. I do believe that they will come back. I don't know how quickly they'll come back. It's a bit difficult to say. It's just too unpredictable with the virus at the moment. But I do believe that, humans want that social interaction. We want to be social. We want to have the physical events. There are some sort of events that you can do, the education type of events online, and conferences can be done online, but your sort of live events, concerts, physical events with the music sort of industry, people want that. There's still a huge appeal for the physical side of things. So I think without putting a time frame on it, I do think they will come back. And I'm very, very positive that they'll come back with a bigger bang than before, hopefully.
Absolutely. I have to say, I agree with you that people are craving the human interaction. So I think somehow they will come back. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
And I guess for those of people who are listening to us and maybe they're interested in hosting their events, they're not sure what to do, how to do it. What advice, again, as an event expert, as an event professional, what advice would you give to anyone, any organization thinking about hosting an event, not sure what to do or how to do it right now?
Well, obviously, depending on what the restrictions are, I know all over the world there's different restrictions. For South Africa and the UK, from what I can gather, it's very difficult to host a physical event at the moment. But I think as the regulations change, we just have to keep up to date with those regulations. If you are able to host a physical event anytime soon, I think the health and safety requirements are very big and very important to sort of hone in on at the moment. So make sure that everyone's sanitized, make sure everyone's temperatures are checked, and make sure there's physical distancing between everyone. That kind of thing really does help when it comes to putting on the physical events at the moment. I think if you can take your events online, like your conferences and your educational events, I think it's a great idea to do that. It does keep you relative at the moment when, things are a bit uncertain for everyone. You want your audience to still be interacting with you on sort of either social media or live stream events. I think it is good to sort of keep that up to date at the moment. But, obviously it depends on what type of event you are hosting. You also don't want to be irrelevant and be doing a music festival that no one wants to log on to because they actually just want the physical thing. I think it just depends what your event is, your specific industry, and take it from there. But I think there's a lot of potential for virtual, but I also think some events must wait until the physical can come back.
Interesting. So I hear you say you can do different things. Obviously, follow the guidelines, follow the latest safety regulations, but it is possible. So, I think it's important to remind people that events are still happening, events are still possible. It's just about adapting and following the most recent guidelines, which is very interesting. And again, as an event professional, you deal with acts and artists and speakers all the time. In your experience as an event expert, how did you partner with speakers or artists or acts to make your event a success and really stand out?
So I haven't partnered personally with too many speakers in that at this point, but I do believe that there is a way for them to get involved on the sort of virtual platform for educational events, conferences, and that type of thing. Look, I've been focusing more on the entertainment and live music events, and at the moment also still physically up until the end of December. But I think it's really important if you are going to have your keynote speakers to identify the topics that engage very well with your audience and offer the value to your audience. And then in turn, identifying the correct and most professional keynote speakers that you can have on board to discuss those topics.
Amazing. So I hear you say engagement with the audience is super important right now, especially if it's virtual. It's even more important that your speaker, your act really connects and engages with the audience as much as possible. So that's really good advice.
Yeah.
And just one last question, for any event, maybe in-house event professional who work, in-house for the clients who are listening to us right now, what advice would you give them, again, if they are looking at their plan for the rest of the year and they're not sure where to start, what to do? Would you give them any specific advice on how to think about their event planning for the year?
Well, the most obvious advice I can give is to stay very positive in these very difficult times, and also to keep updated with the regulations as they come into effect. I think we're all in the same boat all over the world. We don't want to be negative. We don't want to have panic. It doesn't help us. So the positivity is very, very key. And then I also think it's really important, as I said before, to stay very relevant in your specific industry. So like I said before, not all events are great for the virtual platform. And if that's what that is for your event, then that's okay. Then you just brainstorm, stay innovative, stay connected to your audience in other ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be a virtual event, but patience is key. Rather don't throw something that's going to be mediocre or that's not relative to your industry. Rather wait a bit, plan, brainstorm, hope for the best. We're all here in the same boat, and we have to try and adapt to suit our events as best as we can. But I think also going the opposite way is not the best idea. So I think another thing. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, this is such a great advice, staying positive, and things can happen. And you're going to add something else. You're going to add one final thought.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you keep upskilling during these times, try and sort of adapt to certain things in a different way by upskilling, maybe changing your outlook or the way you brainstorm, or the way you conceptualize events. Something will come of it. The events will come back at some point. We all don't know when, but we just have to hope for the best, stay positive, and keep upskilling.
Upskilling, such a great advice. And I've also seen that those speakers that are speaking right now and events that are happening are all people who were staying positive and making things happen and really adapted to the new normal really quickly, whether it was through upskilling, like you just said, or even being positive and thinking that it's possible. So great advice. Love it, Steph. And where can people find you right now? How can they get in touch with you right now? What's the best way to contact you?
Probably on LinkedIn would be the best. I've also got an Instagram account, and then via email if they would like to. I can give you all those details. You can pop them into the screen. But basically Instagram, LinkedIn, and email would be the best.
Instagram, LinkedIn, email. Perfect. Thank you so much, Steph. It was great hearing your insights about the event industry. So thank you for your time again.